support banking innovation and ecosystem building. I think open banking must definitely be around digital trust. You can't use something you don't trust.
Is that with the British accent?
Open access to data. We're keen to see how the trust in ecosystem in terms of the ratio into corruption.
Yeah, please. It's too late for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Could you tell us who you are and what you do? I know you mentioned your name. I'm not sure you mentioned what you do.
Yes. So again, my name is Lisa Ikede. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Credit Registry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for coming back. Mr. Tunji Andrews. Can you hear him? Okay.
The African continent has a huge bias for. Can you hear me?
Please hold on, Mr. Tunji. Please start over. Your audio was lost earlier.
All right. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. My name is Tunji Andrews. If you can hear me now clearly, right?
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay, good. So my name is Tunji Andrews. I lead the team at Awaba. We provide sustainable retirement for workers across the African continent with a huge bias for informal sector workers. So basically in Nigeria, we're driving the biggest push for micro pensions, and I was trying to see that cut across all financial services for the informal sector. So thank you for having me, by the way.
Morning, sis.
Oh, you're welcome. And let me start with you,
Just
Mr. Tunji, since you're on screen. Oh, go ahead. Just take a seat. No problem.
Yeah.
So the question for you is revolving around data security and risk management. And how do we protect users from data breaches, identity theft, and unauthorized transactions?
That's a lot of energy.
So to be honest with you, this is why I'm not as excited as everybody else, because if the precedents to Nigerian financial services is what we're going to explore here, then I'm a bit worried, because financial services as a whole require a good lot of education. It requires knowledge, and it requires a lot of robustness on the side of the user. As an ecosystem, we've not done pretty well in terms of education with financial services. You find the situation where banks say the CBN's duty, the CBN says we don't own the products, it should be the banks educating customers. We keep throwing blame or the bulk round and round. And if, because the real truth about open banking is that the customer has to give access, right? But the customer needs to fully understand what access he or she is given, and needs to be able to know when the financial service that is the provider that he or she is giving that authorization to crosses the boundary of the access they are given, right? If this is not clear to the customer, then we have a problem. But I want to be proven wrong by believing that as an ecosystem this time, we will do better in educating the customer on not just the great sides of it, but also ultimately what the potential risks of getting into this can be. So you clearly know who you give such authorization to, you clearly understand who you allow to have access to your data. So for instance, one of the things this would unlock is credit for Nigerians. If we know anything about Nigerians and appetite to credit, is that it is huge. There are a lot of people getting payday loans. There are a lot of people getting those loans on those, loan shark apps. Imagine the kind of chaos we would have if multiple people, just access the new app, and then the app says, oh, we are now open banking compliant. Just click this button and give us access so that we can give you a higher loan amount. You can imagine the amount of chaos. So I believe before we start to roll out our fantastic products, which our bio is rolling out 1, 2, It's important. It's important that we
Maybe
educate.
you tell us about it
It's
before
very important.
we call it a day. All right. Thank you. And Tuji, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I mean, I have been in finance and in the finance services for some time now, and I can tell you that you roll out an app and you market it and get it out, and then the next day someone comes and says, I don't know what happened. My money is gone, and then I acknowledge that we have such a gap in education and in just enlightenment. I live and work in the north, and I can tell you that that gap really exists. So thank you for that. Ise, I'm coming to you, and the question I want to ask you is, in what ways does open banking reshape the traditional relationship between consumers and financial service providers? In what way does open banking reshape the traditional relationship between consumers and financial service providers in Nigeria? Inti, are you here?
Yes, I got it. Do you hear me?
Okay, all right. Yes, I do hear you. Thank you. Listening.
Okay, thank you for that question. So in terms of reshaping the relationship, let's think of who can access my information, who controls my information, what can be done with my information, and how am I sure I'm safe? Let's look at those points. So yes, open banking is going to give consumers this organizational access, control, to our information. We then choose who, maybe multiple applications, who we want to share this information with. And then it gives us access to maybe more capital. I think the previous speaker said, depending on the service providers that come in the space, I get more access to capital, more opportunities, options, leverage, if you have it. So I would say the major reshape now is control. How much I can control what I have and how can I use to my benefit. But I want to say that the key thing is who is providing the services. So it's great when all these things are set up. We now need to see entrance. What is being offered to me? Am I getting more car loans? Am I getting more rental, unique payment plans, buy now, pay later? All those things, they should open that up to me and then give me the choice and give me this people. So that's what I'll talk about major uses.
Instead, would you want to add to the previous question about how open banking can enable collections?
Well, I mean, I think it was answered quite a bit. What can I add to it? That we want to be sure that with whoever this, I'm talking more about loans now. Whoever these services providers are coming into play, we want to make sure that they also think about how will this work end to end, right? Let me talk about collections that I'm familiar with. So, in the US, we have a more mature system, I would say, for collections. So if I default on something, then we have all these agencies that
Social Security.
Yeah, so we work on identifying how we can identify people so we can hold them, liable for what we take out. So those are the kinds of agencies that we bring up now to support the system.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Insane. And thank you for just allowing me to drop that on you as well. So Samuel, over to you. So I just want to ask you a question, and the question is, what kind of cross-sector collaboration is needed to create a secure and right-based open banking environment? Samuel, you want me to take it again? Did you hear?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very, 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 very good question. And I think the simple answer is more needs to be done. But I think I'll break it into sort of three elements: people, process, technology. So from people's point of view, industry associations, industry bodies, industry leadership in collaboration with the regulator is quite important. So I'll give you some context. Early in my career, I was the information security manager of an energy company based in the UK. And at the time, a regulation came out called NIS, the Network Information Security Regulation. And it sets requirements for cybersecurity for the operators to comprehend to. And that regulation, no one could actually understand it and implement it because they do say it's quite expensive and it needs technology to advance. So a special working group was created, which is from the National Cybersecurity Center, one side. Then you had the regulator of the industry, one side, and then you had the industry itself, REP. In that working group were discussions and the whole saying, so for example, in this use case, open banking is coming. These are the security risks, these are the financial risks, these are the requirements risks. Are we having this discussion? CRM said, actually, this is what we're doing. And then you have the companies on one side saying, actually, from a solution point of view, this is how we're innovating to get hold of it. So from a people and process point of view, that collaboration across industry is quite important. Also, from a technology point of view, it's quite important from a stack. So what technology infrastructure is being used? Are the current banking core system infrastructure available and secure for the open banking to sort of be implemented? From a process point of view, we're talking about training, awareness. Should there be an industry open banking training for all the stakeholders within the industry to get aware and to make sure that they understand open banking and some of the risk which that sort of themselves. So I guess in summary, so this is a key thing that the open banking mindful concept will be represented. From a process point of view, talking about training, awareness.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you so much for that response. And I'll shoot you a second question. Just before we go ahead, how can financial services providers build trust through transparent data practices and user education? We talked about some of the gaps in education, but how can financial service providers build trust through transparent data practices and user education?
Sure, I think that's quite an important question actually, because for the adoption of any technology, you need trust and essentially user trust. So I think firstly will be around the transparent about reporting of breaches. So some people argue that the reason people are scared to money the banks don't disclose when the breach or there is a sort of cliche or a great clouding as to the breaches and hacks and attacks that are happening within the financial ecosystem. So is there a real-time reporting solution so we are aware as a consumer around the breaches that are happening? Another thing I would say is around the literacy part of things, because if you don't understand the solution, inherently you say no, not because it's not good or bad, because it's a lack of understanding. So there needs to be a campaign around what is open banking, not in English, in different languages, in different flavors, and localized context. So now we've spoken very high levels. But what does open banking mean to the farmer? What does open banking mean to the market trader? All these are English I'm speaking here, but not necessarily be what they want to hear. So I have to I have back. So this is open banking I'm talking about. How can you help me? But I think when you think about localizing some of the education to ensure that in quotes, the financially inclusive people which we're trying to target actually understand the key of that. And then from an infrastructure point of view, we're talking about open banking, it is smart for the internet. So everybody doesn't know how to work on the internet, what solutions in place the USSD is going to use or what. So what solutions I've seen, no offense, copy and paste from the West, but I need to see more localized open solution that the financially excluded people understand and are being included into the ecosystem. So those are the two key things: the transparency at the risk, and then also literacy around it's open banking understood by target audience who can understand.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And it takes me to a question for you, which is very related with what someone has just responded to. And it says, how should the consumer consent be obtained in a meaningful and understandable way, especially for people with low digital literacy, just like someone also mentioned, the farmer, the market woman, the woman at Agege that they talked about. How do we get their consent, in a meaningful and understandable way?
Thank you for that question. This is for me, right? Great. So I think Samuel touched a lot on the points I was going to share on that. So how do we receive information? That's the biggest one. And making sure that you're obtaining the consent in varied ways. So I heard him talk about in local languages, maybe visual prompts, and possibly have audio recordings for them to use, or even have agencies. So you can have an agent that sits and explains the entire process to obtain this consent in a way that they understand before it is obtained. So those kinds of ways, and then ongoing too, because I'll just speak from experience. There's some services that I have given consent to and maybe forgotten about it. And then when it's time for me to either end the subscription or end the service, I'm like buried in your website trying to find where I can opt out, cancel, and it's frustrating. We can't have that here. We can't have that here. You're talking about people who have a low digital literacy. Gladly, a lot of Nigerian penetration of use of mobile services is high. So using and interfacing with a mobile device, is quite familiar to a lot of people, even the sector that you're talking about. However, it can't be a frustrating process. It has to be really simple and plain language and in multiple ways. And the option to have somebody to advocate for them before they sign up.
I hear you loud and clear. It shouldn't be in fine lines hidden somewhere that you don't find, And
Right.
Tunji, this brings me to you. I mean, Inse just went into your question right there. And the question is supposed to be, and I'll ask you two questions, Tunji. How should consumers' consents be obtained in okay, no, that's on the ground. Just a second. Mr. Tunji, are you here?
Ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, so it's about regulation and enforcement. Should there be penalties for institutions that misuse or mishandle consumer data? And are these penalties sufficient today? I'm not sure there are yet, but then should there be? And if there are, please let us know.
Should there be? Absolutely. I think the question should be, what should the penalties be?
Yes.
The problem so I'm from traditional finance, right? And there's a thing we say, especially when we're trying to create products. It's okay. I don't say it. Let's just be clear. It's when you're trying to create a product and you ask, "What's the fine?" And then the person tells you the fine, and you check how much you're possibly going to make, and then you're like,
then you do your check the
and like you'll pay the fine. If it's that, so the penalties are not strict enough. I can tell you an example. So there's an app I use in Nigeria, which at some point I wanted to opt out of using the app. Suffice to say that there was no delete my accounts option on the app, which is actually a violation of Apple's standards. But within the Nigerian ecosystem, this is a service provider that provides a lot of service for a lot of people. There's no, so I went the extra mile. I wrote them, I want my account deleted, and then they start trying to sweet talk me. Is there something we can do? Just delete my account. I don't have to have a reason. And I'm saying this because one thing is clear. Open banking is a very significant magic wand for the financial service providers. That will be misused. I can assure you it will be misused. I can guarantee you it will be misused.
Hello.
What? You hear me? Yeah, no, can you still hear me?
Yes, you're back now. You were frozen.
Yeah, so what I can guarantee is that it will be misused. What we need to set clearly is what are the penalties for those that misuse. Because we will be building trust along the way, right? Um, as we go, people will start to understand more of what the reach is of this. So I heard a question earlier, GSI. Um, uh,
Yes.
and GSI
Just hold that thought. There's a question on the screen here, still on GSI, so I want you to look it in. And
Okay.
it says, it's a question for any of the panelists, how would GSI be implemented retrospectively? So you could just look it into your thoughts.
So retrospectively, I don't know if that will be a thing because every credit that you take is bound by certain guidelines and laws, and GSI might not apply to that particular credit that was taken at the time. I don't know if the CBN will do something retrospectively, but I know that will be challenged in court eventually. So we need to be very careful with those kind of things, right? It needs to be, again, it's all about consent. So when you're taking the credit, you should be able to opt in for GSI, right?
Exactly.
So those are critical.
So maybe you have to lower the obligor back to just say, oh, let's restructure, let's give you a better payment plan. We don't want you to have a bad credit record. Just come. And then when they come,
and maybe if you don't agree to it, then you don't give the credit. Maybe that's just the way it should be. But so like I said, GSI is one of those things that in case you're on this call and you don't understand what GSI really means, I'll tell you in simple parlance. In some banks, if you have a credit on your checking account and you keep all your money in your savings account, that bank doesn't have the permission to go into your savings account and take the money, even though you owe them in the same bank, right? It's standard.
You have written the setup.
I'm telling you. But what it means is that even if you took it in bank A and you went to go and hide all your money in bank D, it will just take you. So, that's like a significant magic wand. And I'm sure that, credit, people who offer credit are excited about this, excited about the prospects of what it can really create. But with great power comes great responsibility. We can't just because it is going to help the credit system. Let them know that you have the option to say yes or no. If they say yes, of course, it's all good for all of us. Should it be mandatory? Should it be a forced option? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anything in life should be a forced option. But in the real cause, I think the upsides are bigger than the downsides. So if you can, and the truth is, this thing rises and falls on the back of education.
Yeah.
The adoption will succeed if we really invest in education. It will fail, as many great, high-sounding, very well-meaning policies in the past have failed. It will fail if we do not adequately educate the audience of what we're doing. So for me, I still go back to the fact that all of this is great and good. Well, I think so I need to also say this, in the UK, the banks are not the ones that directly educate, right? They have a lobby association that its job is to educate the public on financial services. I think the pension and insurance space has one, banking has another. So, but we don't have that in Nigeria. We don't have that in Nigeria. It's
everybody just does their bit.
Yeah. So I don't know how we're going to go about it, but I think as we're all planning rollouts, we need to all come together and sit down and ask ourselves, how are we going to educate Mama Risi in Ojalpa? How is she going to use it?
So it should be a two-pronged approach as you
It's critical. So I'll tell you what my team is struggling with, or my team is thinking through. So one of the biggest challenges micro pensions has in Nigeria is direct debit. A lot of customers want to use it. But now, this gives us the opportunity to be able to create direct debits in very grassroots, granular ways, right? I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that is keeping me awake is how do I explain it to these people? They've asked for it, they want it, but I don't feel in good conscience to just deploy it without fully explaining to them.
Explaining the implications.
Exactly. So how do we create a campaign that really speaks to the heart of what this can do for them outside micro pensions? Could it do more? Could it give them access to health insurance? Could it do a lot more? So those are the things that are keeping me awake, to be able to show them the upsides while, telling them that this is finally here, but this is what it can do. But please understand it. I'm going to give you those tiny T and C's. I'm going to put them in bold captions, like green neon lights.
And you're going to go the step further to put it in their languages that they understand.
Exactly.
In sign language and all that.
I don't know why the entire industry is not as worried as I am. I think everybody's just really excited about the upsides. I'm just like, yo, I know what can happen.
That's what makes the ecosystem really balanced, So while you're staying awake, we'll be praying that you get that big idea on how to go about it, So thank you so much, Tunji, for making this conversation very interesting. And I'm beginning to engage the landing gear on this panel right now. So we just go. Okay, there is a comment here. Thank you, Larry Etuzi, for your comment. And she says, or he says, consent should be short-lived, one, and secondly, it should use existing familiar channels like USSD, and it should be localized. That's a good suggestion. So when you're giving a consent, let it be maybe a monthly consent or a yearly consent or something. So it's not perpetual, and then you have to start checking the whole app, where do I exit, where do I cancel, and all that. Thank you so much for that. So Samuel, we're going to start from you. So I just want to take your parting thought. What do you want to leave our audience with, concerning the open banking, and I mean just anything you would want to, and you may also want to use this little time to, if you have some information about your company that you want to also advertise, you could just take the liberty to do that. So Samuel, you, and then we'll have Mr. Tunji, and then until last, just the inverse of how we started. So Samuel, over to you.
I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I guess I'll close with my people process technology. For me, I think the education part is key. I think I hear a lot of excitement about open banking, but I hear it at a very high level. I think at grassroots level, or the targeted users or the people that need to use it, I think an educational awareness campaign is to be done. We hosted around 20 banks in collaboration with CB in Dubai about 3 months ago for some training program which we do, and open banking and trust came around. From a banking point of view, the technology exists, but there is a bit of hesitancy and just pushing it out. Are you sure they know that every month the 28th money will come out, and if it doesn't come out, it's a challenge. So I think there is that thing. How are we going to let them know and make them confirm that you know what they're signing up to? Not a guy next week, that could potentially put you some financial impact to say. I think articulating that at the grassroots level is the biggest challenge. That's why you don't want to say, I don't understand.